I'm here to tell you guys all about Skuna Bay salmon. This is Atlantic salmon that is craft raised in Vancouver Island. Vancouver Island is just north of Seattle on the Pacific Ocean side. It's a barrier island to the city of Vancouver, and we're growing our fish on the Pacific Ocean side of that water. So the reason we chose to craft raise our fish there is because it has access to this glacier-fed fresh water from the Gold River. It spills down into these really deep sounds, which are really more like fjords because they've been carved by this fresh glacier-fed water. And then also we get a nice brackish mix of Pacific Ocean salt water coming into that same sound. So it gives us a really strong tidal current for the fish to swim against throughout their life. It takes us 3 to 3.5 years to raise these fish from start to finish. So it's important that they have as natural of an environment as possible, and for them you've got to have really nice salinity and also really strong tide so they can swim against, metabolize their fat evenly, and also strengthen up that muscle so you've got a nice firm salmon to serve to the diners. So up there, there's literally nothing. There are no cell phones, there is no development. It's First Nations reserve land. So essentially we have the sea sites out there, and we have to have craftsman farmers to live on these sites. They live on the sites 8 days on, 6 days off, 365 days a year, just looking out for the health of these fish for that 3-year or 3.5-year grow out period. So then when you or chef orders that fish from Judy at Santa Monica Seafood, when you order it, let's say on Thursday, on Friday our craftsman farmers go out and harvest the fish in a small batch to order. So it's not stocked anywhere. It's not just being ordered and sitting at Santa Monica for you guys to take case in and case out. It's literally farm to chef. It's being pulled and harvested specifically for your order. So we'll harvest the fish in a small batch. We want to make sure not to get them stressed out, which is why we have a smaller seed net in our pens. Because if they get stressed, they'll produce lactic acid, and that'll damage the flesh. So we'll harvest them in a small batch. They'll come up through a water channel, which basically simulates water coming down through a chute. And what that does is it simulates the salmon going upriver to mature and spawn, which, again, the more you mimic the natural life cycle, the better quality product you're going to get. So they swim up against this current, and they get a pneumatic stun right at the end of it. This makes the death instantaneous, pain-free. They then get a pneumatic gill cut to start the bleed out, and then they go up onto a table and they get a secondary gill cut by hand. We want to get all that blood out so that the fish doesn't go into rigor before you process it. If you process a fish post-rigor, when the chef gets his fish in the kitchen and they fillet it, they'll usually see some tearing or gaping, so we want to avoid and mitigate that. So from there, they'll go over to our processing facility on Quadra Island where they're hand-gutted, and then from there, the Skuna Bay grading process takes over. So from there, we have 6 people who are qualified to select Skuna Bay salmon by hand, and they're looking for 14 different grading standards that have 0 tolerance. The fish has to go 14 for 14 to make it into a Skuna Bay box. 13 for 14 will get you downgraded to premium and sold for a premium on the market. So it's just an above premium grading standard. Some of the things we look for are really tight scaling to protect that flesh for the journey down, and also firmness. So we'll flip the fish on its back, and if its belly wall caves in, it's not getting in the box. Once they determine a fish is Skuna Bay, they'll go through the belly cavity with a metal spoon and a water jet attached to it, remove any excess visceral fat, and also it allows them to check the belly wall for bruising. They'll then take something that looks sort of like a paddle, and they'll push down on all the pin veins inside of the cavity, and that's to ensure that if there is any blood left behind, that it goes into the spine and out through the gill, as opposed to decomposing the flesh. Then you take the fish, we dip it in 100% salt water brine, no chem, just water with kosher salt in it until the water can't absorb the salt anymore. It's a Japanese purification method. It ensures the fish comes out bacteria-free, and it preserves that great quality pulled out of the water that morning. Then the same person will lay that fish in this box by hand, pack ice in the fish cavity, the belly cavity, and ice around the fish, and then seal it shut. Then they'll place this label on it here. So every single Skuna Bay box comes with complete traceability on the box. So you'll see you have the name of the person who hand-selected your fish. This allows us to keep our quality really consistently high because there's accountability on every single box. If you guys get a box of Skuna Bay and you're not happy with the quality, you take a picture of the label and send it to us, and we're like, hey Keith, why'd you put this fish in the box? Also, we have on here the date of harvest, so you can always tell how far out of the water your salmon is. So for example, today's Thursday, August 16th. This fish was still swimming on Tuesday morning, August 14th. So we're able to get it down to you guys from harvest to kitchen within 48 hours. And then we have the exact farm site it came from, so we have traceability built in as well. We've got 21 farms around Vancouver Island. At any given time, 14 are in operation, 7 are just resting. It's called fallow, so we allow the environment to stay as pristine as it was when we got there. And then they seal this box shut, and the next person to see it is you. So it's completely farm to chef. The box itself is recyclable. It's made of a new technology called ThermoFresh. Holds ice just as well, if not better, than polystyrene. And it's not only recyclable, but it's made from recycled materials. In addition, we truck our fish down to reduce our carbon footprint. We don't fly our fish. And since we're right there just north of Seattle, it's not hard to get it to you within 48 hours. So we can get inside and look at the fish now, and I can stop talking about it.